Okay, so I find my feet again. I was a very odd child, shall we say. I felt very strange. I was quite happy, but I spent a lot of my time as a child in the forest. I had wonderful, independent parents who were very hippie, very free. And so I spent a lot of time in the forest in the Pacific Northwest by myself on the back of our property. And I would sit and I would talk to nature. And I really had this sense of connection. Well, um, despite the fact that both of my parents were incredibly intuitive, it wasn't something that they practiced. It wasn't something that they even talked about. They just felt, knew, and said and did from their deepest gut and from their knowing. So, although I got the message that that was there, how to tap into it was never available. I was very curious as a teenager about magic because that was the only thing I saw other than our traditional family ways and things that we did. So I researched a lot of witches and spells, and I found that that was explaining my experience. Is that so I started dabbling. I started doing cards. I started doing candle magic. I got really in trouble for almost burning down a horse trailer because I was doing spells at 13 out in like candle spells in a barn. Not a really great thing to do. And I felt the connection. What happened then is really common to a lot of healers is then as you start to awaken, often everything breaks loose. The things, your power kind of runs amok. We find we grow up so fast. And I found myself all of a sudden in very strange circumstances where I was getting into a lot of trouble. Basically, I was very smart and I was very connected, and I was basically an adult running around in a 13-year-old body. And so I ended up at the end of a gun of a young man that then assaulted me. And it was someone that people knew. And when I told the story, no one believed me. And at the same time, I had been really pursuing like Ouija boards. And I have nothing against them. I don't use them now, but I had had some scary experiences, the ones that everybody's nightmare of doing, like mediumship, is like unexplainable phenomenon, things switching around in my house, being terrified. And I just shut it down. I thought, if I should have seen it coming. I should have seen it coming. And then I lost a lot of friends. And at one point, I grew up in a beautiful Episcopalian church. I absolutely had the best experience, and I understand a lot of people don't have that, but I really did. I was very lucky. But I thought, if that's God, I want no part. And I literally took my cross off when my first love died at 19. I had those 6 years where I developed anxiety so hard I couldn't go to school. And I mean the kind of anxiety, like, although it's difficult to imagine now and hard to talk about, I couldn't eat food without other people trying it because I was terrified it was poisoned. People were poisoning grapes in grocery stores at the time. And I had found that there was no safe place outside and no safe place inside. And that started, I was like, well, I don't know what I have, but it isn't doing me any good. And I went to a wonderful somatic therapist. Fast forward a few years, I still wanted to go to school. I had to leave high school because I had anxiety attacks, terrible anxiety attacks. And I mean the type where you lay on the floor and cry and pull your hair. And I don't want to exaggerate that, but I want you to know that if you've ever been to the point where you think you're losing it, that you're okay and you can come back. So I was at that point 24, 25, single, really didn't date. I smoked a pack and a half a day. I was 230 pounds. I would look like a goth. I had black hair, really white makeup. I was in deep, deep pain. And somehow I went to college. It took me 7 years to go to school. Like, because I had to sit in the back of a class, I'd get overwhelmed. I had no idea. Remember, this is the time when we didn't have the internet. People didn't know what anxiety was. They wanted to maybe lock me up. I was like, well, that seems ridiculous. Like, I feel like a lot of stuff has happened to me and I just hadn't processed it. And now we're so thankful. There's so much help out here. There's things like this. So I finally got to college, and when I was in a dark room because I was studying photography as well as my native studies degree, and I was in a dark room, and I got really overwhelmed by the smells. And if you've ever had that type of anxiety attack where you just leave, I ran out of the room. I ran out of the dark room, and the first thing I saw was a window. And it was the second story window. And I opened it and I went to get out because I was in such panic, in such flight that I almost went out. And something stopped me. Grace stopped me. I would have definitely been hurt. And that was a moment. I left school, which was breaking my heart because I'm a writer. To become a teacher was a goal of mine. And it's still it is hard to talk about. It is emotional, right? To see the places that we've gone in life. So I went back and I called my parents, and they came and got me, and they packed up my stuff. Everybody gave me some tryptophan. I laid down and I felt like I had failed. And that was one term. That was one term of going away to college, and I needed to go away. At that point, there wasn't even online school. I needed to go away, but I didn't have any skills, and I had massive information coming in because the intuitive part of me was like, gather, gather, gather. Great antenna, no idea what to do with it. So I went home, and I remember going through Christmas and just being really, really struggling with it emotionally. And this beautiful day, I will never forget, in January, how perfect that we're here in January. This beautiful day, I looked out, and on this tree was a red-tailed hawk. And there was hoarfrost everywhere over the trees. That's when the frost freezes on the trees. And it looked like a scene from Dr. Zhivago. It was a bright blue sky. And I thought, I've got to get out of here or I'm not going to make it. So I started studying Buddhism. I realized that I needed to calm down. I needed to bring that nervous system down. And this was the beginning of me learning how energy worked personally, and that there's no way that's right for energy to work. Introvert, extrovert, air sign, fire sign, water sign, like we're all built differently, and the way you're built is just perfect. The way you're made is perfect. And you can learn to manage your energy in a sense that no matter how sensitive, and I am sensitive, really sensitive, and I have an online business now where I am on the social media and the internet. I was in news, and we'll get to that. That day I chose to start following what my guidance had been telling me, which was there's more. You're an artist. I went into books because I was scared. I mean, I went into teaching and books, and I was going to put myself away in a university and never see the light of day because it was like a library when we had paper books then. And I thought that sounded perfect. It would be low stimulation and I would make it. I just wanted to write about things that were beautiful. So one thing that came up when I started meditating was how much I loved music and how much I wanted to sing. And I thought, I wonder if I could take a voice lesson, if that would help me relieve the inner pressure. And I did. And I was good. I started singing opera and classical. And if you can imagine, little, scared, terrified me singing on stage shortly a year later what that work went to look like. And then to write my own albums and perform in public and get paid over the next 10 years was digging into what was really wrong. And remember when I said it was that sense that there was no safety. I had never processed the trauma energetically. I had done therapy around it. I had talked about it. I had journaled. I must have thousands of journals at this point, some of them with huge scrawling letters, like, you know, really raging on the page, really letting it go. But I didn't realize that it would live in my body. And that's what my body was trying to tell me. And there's no shame in not knowing that. There's no shame, you know, in not healing it. I didn't know. And there was no one to tell me. I think that's the beauty of all the pitfalls of social media and how we're connected, but there wasn't an internet. Can you imagine the suffering that people had? And so how beautiful it is that we get to go forward. So I started following that. And then one of the things I bought is I found my interest again in cards, in oracle cards and in tarot. And because the meditation books were at the crystal shop. And the owner, the amazing Joyce of the Curiosity Shop in Oregon, she was Glinda. She had a big cutout of Glinda the Good Witch, and she really was. She really was. She was delightful. And I bought my first set of cards, and I bought crystals, and I was like, something is here for me. And I sat down with one of my friends, and I was doing musical theater. Like, this was 3 years later. I was probably 27. I was doing musical theater with a girl, and I was still in the chorus. I still love the chorus, to be honest. I'm still the person who loves to support people, so being in the back is kind of okay for me, but not because I'm scared, right? There's the difference. You can be support not because you're scared. You can be support because you like it. And we were sitting down one day doing playing with our cards on the kitchen floor, and it came through. Huge amounts of like visions of pictures, and I thought, wow. At this point, I'd also lost about 30 or 40 pounds. And because I was choosing things that were slowing down my personal ability, certain foods for me really slow down the ability to receive the information. So we started talking, and everything that came through, we were like, wow, that's amazing. And we felt so much, and it felt really different and strange than anything I'd ever felt before. It didn't feel so scary. It felt like love. It felt like I was connecting to something I'd always felt, but didn't know how to describe. And she went and confirmed all of the information about this particular scenario with a bra with her mom. Her mom made her wear the 60s pointies bras, right? Like, it was so, I will never forget it. I can't see them without thinking of it. And I was like, there's something here. And word quickly got out that I could do mediumship. And I started charging. And I helped a friend. The very first paid reading I did was to help a friend whose dog had passed away. And I was like, let's talk to him. She was so sad. My heart was broken for her. I was like, I think he's okay. Let's go see if we can talk to him. And I really didn't have any experience. I didn't have any training. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was there. It had always been there. It had always been in trying to shape me. So what I did next is actually not surprising. I quickly found out that I became popular, and I was doing a movie star's sister, and I live in a tourist community, so you never know who's going to pop out of the woodwork. And all of a sudden it's like taking off, and things kept moving through me and inspiring me, and go here and go there, and then I'm doing an album, and I'm doing this, and like, all of a sudden everything I ever wanted was in front of me, and I'm going to school, and I'm finishing it, and I'm working in a master's. And I wish I could say that I kept going with it, but I did not. My family found out, and nothing on them said, you can't do that. They had never seen it. And this was some extended family. And at the time, I didn't have the emotional resilience. I was like, oh yeah, I am a freak. I always thought I was a freak. Thank you for confirming that. And now I would say, well, of course, our worst fears, we brought them in, right? There it is. Let's remove that. right? And I silenced my business. It was always referral. And I didn't advertise. I didn't tell anyone. People who knew me still kept coming. And I went back. I got not one, but 2 master's degrees, one in film and screenwriting, one in environmental philosophy with traditional ecological knowledge, because I was going to go back into working in the corporate world, or intergovernmental world. And I'll tell you, when you choose the wrong thing and go way against heart, I'll spare you all the things, but everything that could go wrong went wrong. And I doubled down because I'm super strong and resilient and stubborn. So I went and I did that. Then my brother in 2007, all things came to a screeching halt. I had just put in for sabbatical because I was having a little problem with my master's committee. And the divine always has you. The divine always has you. I thought, this feels wrong. I put in and said, I'm just going to take this term off. And 3 weeks later, my brother was paralyzed. He had a spinal cord injury, has a spinal cord injury. He's still alive, and became quadriplegic. And for me, that was the last straw. I'd been given opportunity and opportunity, and you hear how they say the world will absolutely keep telling you how to adjust. And I, very driven person, somewhere around that 26, 27, I had bought a house, and I owned it for 10 years. And it was wonderful. I started making security in material things. I had 2 cars, I had a house, I had 5 acres, all of these things. What I hadn't developed is the inner security. So when my brother was paralyzed, and I remember looking at him in that bed thinking, I've never seen Paris. I've never seen Paris. I was still really struggling with anxiety on a level. I was functioning, but I couldn't get on an airplane. And long story short, I sold everything I owned. And I went to 16 countries, 3.5 months. And I traveled. I started on a boat because I didn't fly. And I was terrified. I shook. I had anxiety attacks. I drove to Florida. I got on a boat. And I started writing again because I had no way to contact my family. They didn't really have internet on cruise ships. They had internet, but it was like dial-up. It was so bad. It was so bad. And what I found is I found my love of writing, and that the ideas came in and the flow came in. And I was like, somehow this feels the same as the intuition part. It's always, I made a lot of mistakes as a traveler. I knew nothing. And I had a BlackBerry, not like a real smartphone. I had no instructions. What I had was inner guidance. So I started writing my family emails every day to tell them my adventures. That was my first book. When I got home, I went to all of these countries by myself. I did part of it on a cruise, then I went by land. I went all over Europe, I went to Africa, South America. I had such a great time. And I found a whole new person. And I was scared the entire time. I want you to know, when I saw that coastline leaving Florida, I cried so hard. I'm like, what have I done? I'm going to be gone until June. It was April. And I have no idea how I'm going to get back. Can't even talk to my family. I was like, what have I done? And I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. So as I'm sitting at the end of this trip in Scotland, at the bottom of the Balmoral Hotel, I was looking at a flame, and all of it came in. It was my first novel. The whole thing, the whole idea was there was finally space in my body. So there was so much crying on that trip. I can't even tell you. There was so much bravery, so much fear, so many things I didn't think I could do, but something kept pushing me like a hand from the back. Go, go, go. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. You don't know. You don't know you yet. So at the end of that trip, I was a different person, and life has been incredibly different ever since. Unfortunately, like I say, one of the reasons I say the upgrades are permanent is because you will realize that life will continue to throw things at you that are amazing and just part of life. In 2012, my dad passed away. It was fairly sudden considering the role that he had in our family. We had several months to say goodbye, which was great. But when he died on the way to the hospital, he said to me, "You have to take care of everyone." And I have to tell you, I thought, "You have the wrong person, sir. I love you." My dad and I were very close, but I'm not the girl. I'm barely keeping this together. This is duct tape. I have duct tape. Like, I'm okay. I'm an artist. I know who I am now. I'm a writer. I'm a creator. I'm an entrepreneur. And he says, "You have to take care of your family, of the family." On the way to the hospital for the surgery that he had that he really never came back from. And I took that deeply. So I ran his publishing company. Again, I chose to go a different direction than my heart really sent me, but I used these the whole time. And I was a publisher. I was a publisher in between. I worked in our family companies, those kind of things. So after 5 years and then while I was at this time also helping my brother's company. So here I am working 2 jobs, getting on planes in Palm Springs on Monday morning, flying, working 3 days in Eastern Washington, then going back, working another 4 days, having very little time off, a lot of fun, great money, all of those things. But what I did was at night, I was so mad, I ran miles and miles and miles. And I would play guitar last thing before I went to bed and I thought, well, at least I did part of my day. I did 20 minutes of me. I still had to work on some other deep healings. And that's the thing, is healing is so inside out. You know, you make one decision and it starts to change things immensely. So in 2017, it became very, very evident that news publishing, and as we knew it, was going to, and it had not already failed as a business model. And I wasn't happy. I would walk out of my office and look at the sun. I was like, there's no nature here. I didn't want to be inside. I hired a bunch of amazing women. That part was great. Being part of the community was great. So I started my own business in 2017. And I said, I'm going to do it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it. And I had kind of been playing on the internet in 2016. So I started a small independent press, which I love juggling, and it's fabulous, and I still love it. And we did help people bring books to market. It was a hybrid publishing company where we would help you guide, but then we would pay to publish it because I didn't have a full model going for that. And I wanted people to be for paid publishing, traditional publishing. And we had just finally kind of cracked that in the beginning of 2020. In the beginning of 2020, I went into it with a business partner who was a little more of a shark than me, which was great because I realized I don't know how to sell, right? I'd done advertising sale, but I didn't know how to sell. So here we are underneath all of this. Well, let me finish the story of what happens in 2020. In 2020, the shutdown came really fast for all of us, right? We had just figured out that the best way to market books was at book conferences. And we were going to set up all these book conferences. And we got our first client for $25,000. And within 8 days, that was all gone. And I think I speak for a lot of people of like, oh, everything you knew, just gone. Everything you thought you were doing, gone. And I thought, well, gee, okay, if I can't do anything, all our businesses were shut down, those kind of thing. What can I do? Now, what I had been doing the whole time is doing referral readings, and I knew I was good at them. I had started out sitting in crystal shops with a little sign, $1 a minute, please pay me, I'm here for you. Started free. Again, when I started back up, something had been calling me during those times when I had started my business. I'm like, no, too weird. Yeah, too weird. No, too weird. And then I was like, I remember the moment in 2020, I think that we all had. What if we don't make it? What if this is the end of our world? And I thought, I'm going to be totally me. I don't care how weird I am. I'm going to find my people, finally. I'd found other artists, but I hadn't necessarily found people who I felt were like very grounded intuitives. So what I did is I just put it up on the internet. intuitive reader. Shh. Don't say the psychic word. Don't say medium, right? And people were wowed. And I quickly increased my rates. And the business took off so fast, so fast. And then I found I could do retreats. I just offered retreats. That I love teaching intuition because mine was always there. And I gave myself full permission and it went crazy. So a year and a half later, now I have an online business. I am still writing. I'm writing more than I ever have. I have all of those things in my life. I'm starting to create more music. But what had to go was that sense that I was strange. Thank goodness that some of us are strange and different. If you're an intuitive person, you're different. You're wired different. Empaths, I love that we're talking about that. I didn't know I was an empath and I took in everybody's energy. That's why I showed you the bubble. That is the key to empath health. I'm very empathic. That's why I did animals for so long. One of my animal clients may be going to the Olympics, the next jumping Olympics. Right? How amazing is that? Because he was so scared of getting sold, he wouldn't jump, and they knew he could do it. And I can say that on the internet. What's more important is that now I wake up most mornings thinking, I love me. I love my life. I don't have anxiety anymore. I haven't had anxiety for a long time. I know that if my anxiety creeps up, I'm off soul. What I want you to know is that you're a sacred human being. Your life is sacred. You are sacred. You are an expression of this universe. And you don't have to be like anyone else. Your intuition, everybody has intuition, it's pulling you towards your soul purpose, your soul channel, the things that are right for you, the things that are perfect for you, the things that you're meant to do. And when you start to go for them, they come in faster because now you are that match people talk about. That's how you become it. You don't have to change who you are. You just have to really unlearn the culture that tells you you're not enough. Our whole world can really benefit from more compassion. And that starts with ourselves. We're hard on ourselves. We're really hard on ourselves. And one thing I love social media, how it connects us. But when we look around and think they've got this, they're doing this, they're more than me, it's hard to be in a place of self-love. And when you think of wow, that's opportunity. We can do more, right? When we have great self-love, being online doesn't hurt. When we have clear empathic channels, when we have clear energy, we do energy work. We do what I just showed you, the clearings, invocations, and the energy around ourselves so that we are extra close to who we really are. Your purpose on this planet is so clear. And when you embrace that you're sacred, even the things that you've gone through, the things that I've gone through, there are things that if I have one regret, it's not that anything happened. Because in the middle of that, the biggest change I think that I can say I made was my soul is not broken. My soul is intact. And I want you to know that no matter what you've been through or how hard it is right now, I know a lot of people have not had great COVID stories. I've lost a lot of people. That your soul is always 100% whole and always 100% ready to go. So I'd like to leave you with that today, your intuition, the language of your soul with the Creator and with the world at large, is sending you towards something. That beautiful little whisper, or maybe a loud voice at this point if you haven't been listening, is telling you which direction, how you can heal. And it doesn't have to be grandiose. It can be. I love one of my favorite COVID stories is someone who was a big internet marketer, or he's a winemaker. That's what it was. I was I've heard a couple of great ones, but who was a winemaker. And he loved his job and he was really good at it, award-winning, and decided to become a firefighter instead. Your soul can send you in the direction that's perfect for you, that doesn't look like anybody else. And when you embrace it, a lot of things will heal. I'm so happy to have been here with you and shared my story. I want you to be inspired if you've been through a lot. And that's not just all of it. I'm a cancer survivor as well. There's a lot in there. I've had the health challenges, I've had the mental health challenges, I've had a lot of experiences. I've had also amazing experiences dancing across Spain with a baron, which was an accident because I like to talk to people, to seeing the world, to writing books, to I wrote a book called The World Needs Your Art, and seeing that in my own Barnes and Noble still brings me to tears 5 years later. Like, right? Those kids now walking in, telling them, I wrote a book. I'm from this tiny town. It's right there. Go for your dreams, because your intuition is always taking you to whatever your dreams are, and whatever they are, no matter how big or how small, they're perfect for you. You were made for this. I bless you. I wish you the best in life. I'm rooting for you. And I'm just so honored to share this story with you. Thank you so much.